Hey, heck of a morning here on the Continental Divide of Colorado. I'm sitting at about 7,200 feet. Beautiful day. It's still morning, so it's kind of cool. Taking my usual walk with my two dogs. And today I just want to talk about Colorado Shilajit and Shilajit actually in general as far as dosing. How much do I take? I've had a lot of questions with that with a lot of new users. And it's a valid question. And it's kind of a hard question, but we're going to try to make it easy, okay? First thing I want to say is that in all my studies over the last 6 years now and readings of old to ancient text and modern peer-reviewed studies, there's never been an instance of anybody overdosing on real, legit Shilajit. Okay. Now, I can't talk about Shilajit that is not real Shilajit. There's a lot of it out there, right? There's a lot of fulvic and humic acid that's derived from coal. And because Shilajit has lots of fulvic and humic acid in it, people think that, oh, it's got fulvic acid, it must be Shilajit. Well, that's not true. There's a lot of sources of Shilajit, but most Shilajit, things that are labeled Shilajit that you find online, is actually coal-based fulvic and humic acid. It's not Shilajit. It's not nature balanced. It's manufactured in a huge facility using toxic chemicals, using toxic systems, super high heat, 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. There's nothing living in it. And often it's very, very heavy metal laden and actually not healthy for you. So take the time and learn that if you don't like the Colorado Shilajit, there's Shilajit up in Utah. There's a company up there, I believe. And there are some very good sellers of Himalayan Shilajit. You just have to do some research, okay? And just never buy the cheapest stuff out there, ever, because that is just not real. It's not possible to manufacture, harvest, process, and do that correctly and sell it that cheaply, okay? So that's a good sign. But anyway, enough of that. So the dosing we're talking about is with real legit Shilajit. It doesn't matter where it's from, okay? It can come from anywhere, including my Shilajit, Utah Shilajit, British Columbia Shilajit, there's Shilajit in Chile, of course the Himalayas. Shilajit is basically everywhere. It just has to be found and taken care of. So, typically speaking, when you look at online sites, they'll tell you it's a 0.2 grams, 0.25 grams of Shilajit on a daily dose, multiple doses, things like that. And it can vary by person to person. When I first started out using Shilajit, I was taking little dabs of Shilajit on my stick. And then, of course, then I run into people, athletes and other people who've been using Shilajit for years and, well, Sam, 0.2, I'd use a gram of Shilajit a day, right? And I said, okay. So what I'm saying is that there's a lot of variability, and that variability, we'll come to that later, depends on how active you are, how clean your body is, and how much your body is receptive to all that energy, because Shilajit has so much ionic power. And not everybody's ready for it. And in my case, I vary too. In some days I'll triple dose my Shilajit. Other days, sometimes I don't take any at all. I have other fillers for that. So my point is that the dosing will differ, and the more you understand Shilajit, the longer you use it, you'll really get an idea for it, right? So the second thing I'll say is that don't freak out about how much Shilajit you're taking, okay? You'll have a natural balance to that. But what I'm going to start out with is our experience and with Shilajit dosing. And it comes from a study that we did back going on 5 years now. There were 3 of us who sponsored us, including Colorado Shilajit and Saber Sciences, I believe. There was, and then Dr. Dean Lloyd, who is a fantastic practitioner of traditional Chinese medicine. Of course, he's well aware of traditional allopathic medicine because he has that knowledge base. And also with acupuncture and resonance. And he's an incredible resonance man as far as sound and vibrational tuning. But anyway, what we did was we had a dark field microscopy study of first-time Shilajit users. So these were people who had never been on Shilajit. And the range of age went from 28 all the way up to 87 years old. I think the median was well over 50, right, 53 to 55 years old. And with these people, just the first-time users, and it was a dark field microscopy study. So that means that dark field microscopy, for those who don't know, allows you to draw blood and see living blood under a microscope. So you can see the actual blood moving around, the shape of the blood. You can see the waste. You can see bacteria. You can see You can see calcified waste. You can see all kinds of things in dark field blood. And it's kind of interesting because once you do a dark field microscopy study on your own blood, your view of your own health will change dramatically. Because then you start to understand that everything you eat, everything you breathe, you touch, absorb, has a direct effect on your blood. Okay, all the telephones that you hang out with, the EMF, the laptops you put on your lap, has a significant effect on your blood. And of course, the health of your blood is directly tied to what? Your overall health of your body and of mental and physical. So, of this study, we had 12 participants, and what we did, of course, was we did a baseline blood draw. We had a baseline survey of their health conditions, their concerns, things like that. The things that a naturopathic medicine person will go through, right? To understand what you're eating, what you're not eating, all those things. Everything that a doctor, typical doctor, when you go to a clinic, won't ask you. So we had all that. So the dosing came from that, because one of the things that was happening early on when I was making paste and starting to learn how to do it really well, and that took a good year and a half to really understand the purification process and how to keep it really clean, how to keep the bacteria out of a living substance, and things like that. So, but what I did learn almost immediately is I was working with coaches, Olympic coaches who were trainers who were training Olympic athletes for the Paris Olympics. We had practitioners through all the pandemic that was happening. And what happened was that, the first question was, well, how do we dose this Shilajit? Well, traditionally speaking, you dose it by taking a pea-sized or a rice-sized grain of nice purified Shilajit, stick it in water, you cook it with trifala, do whatever you want. But the amount was just never really specific, right? And now I did see a chart that was given to me that was written back in the 1910, and it came from Russia. And there was a lot of different dosing protocols on that, and that's pretty interesting. And we'll go over that in a different video, I think. So in general speaking, what we found was that we couldn't use paste because paste has variables. Oh, there we go. That's a rabbit. I'm sure. Tess is a hunter. And so the sorry about that. I had a gap. The dosing is an issue, because what happens with dosing? I mean, if I need to titrate up or titrate down, I can't weigh my little amount of Shilajit every time I do that. You can, of course, but that's a pain. It's untenable in terms of just making it easy for everyone in general. And the other thing is that when you take your paste, how do you take paste? Well, there's a lot of people, for instance, I'll take paste and put it right underneath my mouth, right? And just let it melt slowly in there. But that's really harsh for some people, and it's really hard to do. And so most people will take their little bit of paste and dip it in water or juice, or sometimes their coffee, which I don't recommend, but water in general, liquid, and they'll stir it in there and they'll drink it, right? Well, we had to have a precise dosing methodology in order to do this dark field study, as well as trainers, practitioners. They needed precise dosing so they could recommend it to their customers and their patients. So basically, we decided on that we were going to do a liquid formula where we had a specific percentage of paste macerated in distilled water. Right. So what basically happens, you take the raw Shilajit, you purify it down, and then you take the paste at a specific moisture rating, right? So the moisture is very important because that determines how much actual Shilajit you're getting versus water. So, and then we would mix that in X percentage of paste, typically right around 5 grams of paste, okay? 5 grams of paste per 30 ml of distilled water liquid. So that would basically go in a dropper bottle, right? And so that was it. And then we decided that taking a look at, we were going to start out at, and we came out with a number. And this was a number that we worked with practitioners. It was this, is that we had a baseline weight of 140 pounds. That was your baseline dosing. So at 140 pounds, our dosing for this study was 9 drops twice per day at 140 pounds. And for every 10 pounds, either way, you would either reduce or increase by 1 drop. So if you were 130 pounds, you would do 8 drops twice per day. If you're 150 pounds, you would do 10 drops twice per day, and so on and so on. So this protocol, this dosing is what we use for our dark field microscopy study. And the reason I still go with it and make that recommendation based on my experience and based on this experience that we've had with the study was that we had such good results at that dosing rate. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't get the same results or maybe even better or worse results, I don't know, with dosing less or more. But what we do know is that at that rate, we had some really significant and very nice results. Okay. So we did the baseline dosing with that. So the first time our study participants came in, of course, we did the first blood draw, and of course we videotaped everything. So we have all hundreds of tapes of videotape of these blood draws. And so every 2 weeks they would come in with another blood draw. So of course the second blood draw, the 2-week blood draw, was after they had used Shilajit for 2 weeks at the dosing rates that was based upon their weight. Now, we did have an opening there because we also understood there was possibilities that some people might take the Shilajit at this dose and respond differently, right? And we had one person who responded in a very negative way, meaning that she had a very big detox effect almost immediately after the dose. So it was within 45 minutes of taking the dose, she basically was complaining of headaches. Her stomach didn't hurt, but it was her head was really not in a good way. It was the detox effect was just huge for her. So we ended up titrating her down to 1 drop per day, and then we increased that over a period of 4 weeks to get her back to the standard dosing. Right. So actually, after the first week, she was fine, but she really had a big effect, and it was a negative effect for her because detoxing can hurt. And what we found out later, of course, was that it's really a lot of heavy metal detoxing that happens very quickly with Shilajit. It's maybe the fastest detoxer of heavy metals and chelating heavy metals out of your body because it reacts very quickly. So that instance, so then we understood that, okay, we titrate down if you have an issue. So the same goes for everybody else who's listening right now is that, if you start out with a dosing that I recommended or that we found to be a good place to start, and you've had that experience, take it down, titrate that down, take a lot less dosing and start real slow, right? Now, as a rule, when I send out a Shilajit, I'll tell people to start slow, go long. Okay, the go long part's really important. To start slow is to make sure that nobody has such a negative reaction that they think that it's a bad reaction, because it's not a bad reaction. The negativity is the fact that you don't feel very good while you're doing it. You have that first response that's not, oh, it doesn't make me feel great. It's make me feel like bad. Well, that bad feeling is actually a good thing when you're using real legit Shilajit because you're cleaning your body. Okay, you're detoxing. That's a detox effect. So that's actually a good thing, but it feels bad. So start slow and go long, right? And here's the thing that we found out, though, that I want to share with you and why I'm still so on this and still recommend this dosing level. And like I said before, you'll figure out your own dosing later on, depending on how busy you are, how clean your body is, how you're interacting with your environment, all of that. But here's what we found, right? Every single person in that study, when we came in, right, on their first blood draw, every single person had leaky gut problems. Every single one. Okay. So everybody had their bacteria, fungus in the blood that was leaking, and you could see the leaky gut fungus. They're huge compared to the blood cells. And one day, I think there's a video up on YouTube for that, and you can see that on YouTube. But the bottom line is that everybody had leaky gut. And so that was the second draw. So that had been 2 weeks into it. Going into the 4th week, the third blood draw, everybody had at least 95% reduction in their leaky gut. Okay, this is huge. Now, there's clinical studies that have proven that Shilajit, right, will get rid of leaky gut. it heals leaky gut, right? It's a healing mechanism. It heals leaky gut, and it heals very quickly. So we just saw what was happening in front of our eyes. It was already proven clinically speaking, and that was also told and foretold of us in the Ayurvedic and traditional Chinese medicine writing, right? So that's all there. But here's the thing. We know that there are pharmaceutical companies making huge money on leaky gut with more medicine, more this, more that. You know what? But you don't need it. Here's a substance, 100% natural, earth-made, that will take care of your leaky gut quickly, succinctly, and without hurt and without side effects, right? Wow. So after the third draw, which would have been the 6th week going into it, right? Nobody had leaky gut. Okay. One person had one factor of leaky gut, which means that all we saw was one little blob of fungus in that leaky gut. Okay. And, as you know, leaky gut is associated with so many different things. Oh, hi, Gus. I got to pick that up. So many different things, right? And so you take care of leaky gut, you take care of a plethora of other issues, right? This is where your first toxic elements come into your body, get into your bloodstream. And leaky gut is everywhere. Why? Because we eat really poorly. We have glycophosphates that we know stretch out the gut lining. And that's huge. And we also know that fulvic humic acid will get rid of and bind glycophosphates out of the body just as it does in the soil, right? You can remediate soil and the body of glycophosphates, forever chemicals, heavy metals, of course, by using Shilajit with the fulvic and humic acids. Okay, so that was fantastic. So that was that. The other thing that happened over the course of time was that people who had arthritis, right? I mean, we had one person that was significant arthritis, curled hands, all kinds of different things. And I've had that issue myself in different ways earlier in my career, in my life. And what we found was that in every instance, the Shilajit reduced or eliminated the arthritic pain and the cramping that was happening from arthritis. The one gentleman who was 87 years old, who could barely move his hands, going into the 4th blood draw, he came into the office and he said, "Wow, doc, look at this. My hand is moving. I don't have the pain that I used to. I can sleep." And and to understand that all these patients, I think bar one, were all naturopathic people. They were homeopathic people. I think there was only one person who had actually taken a shot, a clot shot. So they were actually pretty healthy to begin with in terms of what we would say healthier, versus the person who jumps into the modern medicine, right? But the bottom line was he came back in, because he doesn't take steroids, he doesn't do any of that. He came in and said, "Wow, look at this. My hand is open. I can move it, and it doesn't hurt anymore." And so we had 2 other people who had arthritic issues, and the Shilajit took care of it. It reduced them by 90%. In 2 cases, it got rid of any issues of what they could physically feel, right? Of that. And as a matter of fact, what happens when you look at the dichromal microscopy, you can see the waste pouring out of the body into the bloodstream to be eliminated. It's pretty fantastic, right? I mean, it's not just fat. I mean, you can see the actual particulates in the blood that's being moved out. And one of the great things about the Shilajit is that, when you detox in general, the reason why people feel so horrible when they detox is because the body is taking all the energy that you have, right? Because you're triggering that detox with whatever herbal medicines and whatever thing you're doing. And it takes all the energy to detox. And so you become really low. It's oh, wow, I feel low. I feel slow. I don't feel very good. Well, you know what? With Shilajit, what happens is that detoxing, you don't have that lack of energy because Shilajit is loaded with energy. You're not going to become super low with the Shilajit in your system when you detox. So that was arthritis, right? The other thing, the big thing that was happening along, it was brain fog, because we had a lot of older people. And the brain fog issue now is not just with older people, it's with a lot of people. And it's not only what we eat, the environment, all the things that we breathe in, the things we put in our skin, but it's also the buildup of toxins and the buildup of mucus and other things that slow down the brain, the nervous system, etc., right? And it slows down, and the biggest problem, one of the big problems, of course, is lack of oxygen. right? And what is Shilajit? Shilajit is the supreme oxygenator of your cells. Okay? It's not just the oxygen that you breathe into your body, right? Now, when you have COPD, sometimes you can't even get enough oxygen into your blood. Okay, your capillaries are collapsing. They just simply are not absorbing the oxygen that you're breathing into your lungs. You have a lot of mucus that are built up, into your lung cavities, and so that you can't even pass that. So you're already subpar in terms of how much oxygen you can absorb. Well, no matter your case, what happens with Shilajit is that Shilajit is the supreme oxygenator. And what it does is that it's not just the oxygen that gets into your blood, right? So you can test your blood for blood oxygen. A lot of athletes do that, especially endurance athletes. I suppose sprinters too. But the bottom line being is that it's not the amount of oxygen that's in your blood that matters the most. It's what gets into your cells and gets to your mitochondria, right? And that's what Shilajit does. Shilajit transports more oxygen into your cells than any other single substance that we know of. And so no matter what condition you are, whatever percentage of oxygen you're getting into your blood, the more of it will get into your cells, and that's what matters. So when we talk about foggy brain, that's a big deal. Oxygenation of the brain, it's necessary, right? And so, and of course, the other aspect of it too is that the Shilajit now, as you detox and you start to clarify the mind, clarify the body, what's going to happen is that your synapses work better, everything gets triggered, and that's what happened with our microscopy study, right? The people who had listed brain fog as an issue, that was an issue that was bothering them. In every single case, there were three of those, not four, three of those. Each one had much improved cognitive abilities. They could tell, okay? The other thing, in most instances, everybody improved their bowel movements. It became more regular. It became more consistent. Right? And that's probably because of a healthier gut and a healthier intestinal lining. That has so much to do with it. So Shilajit really goes up and down in terms of gut health. So that was the big thing. So just in that alone and the things that were happening, we found out, hey, listen, this seems like a pretty good protocol as far as, how you should start your dosing, manage your dosing, and go from there. Right? So start slow, go long. And we talked about the slow part, and the reason I say slow because I want everybody to be happy. But most people will start out with their 9 drops at 140 pounds, and go twice a day, and they never have an issue. As a matter of fact, they have the opposite issue. Whoa, Sam, I slept really well today. Whoa, Sam, I couldn't sleep at night. Whoa, and you say, okay, well, why did you sleep well? Because I had sleep apnea before, and I no longer have that issue, or not as badly as before because I'm getting oxygenated. Right? So I can sleep. Well, other people, if you take it too late in the day, it's too much energy and say, oh, you kept me up half the night. Things like that, right? So everybody's a bit different. But the bottom line is that as you use Shilajit longer and longer, as your body not only adapts to the Shilajit adapts to you, but you adapt to the Shilajit as well. But as you become cleaner and cleaner, you will start to notice different things. Number one, you will eat different foods. You will eat less food. Anybody who's using Shilajit consistently will never eat 3 meals a day, right? That's just gluttony, right? 1.5 meals a day is all you really need. And remember, when you don't eat, right, like when you go to sleep, that's the same as fasting. Your body only heals when there's not food in your gut. Okay, the food in the gut must be utilized, turned to ionic energy for you to start healing. Right, so that's why it's so important when you do a fast, for instance, especially with Shilajit. You have energy, but there's no food in your system. It's fantastic for that. We'll talk about that in another video, probably with another practitioner who really knows a lot more about that than I do. Okay, so athletes, people who are super active, okay, people who are thinkers. So if you're using your mind every day heavily, in the office or wherever, the more energy you consume, the more Shilajit you can use and will help you. The cleaner you get, the longer you Shilajit, the less Shilajit you'll need, right? So the bottom line is this, is that Shilajit will adapt to what you need. So for instance, I said it before, is that when I'm going to have a big day in the mountains, so I have 2-3 days of climbing 10,000-12,000 feet, right, up and down, hauling, 80-100 pounds of raw rock, Shilajit, down the mountain, It's hard work, but I'll double and triple dose on my Shilajit, right? And I do that very early in the morning. I don't have to eat breakfast. I'll have my lunch, 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, usually something like dates or something like that to that effect. But you'll find out that when you take Shilajit early in the morning, you'll never have breakfast. You won't need breakfast. Okay, and so don't be afraid to double, triple your Shilajit, especially have specific goals in mind. Okay, so for instance, for men, right, as your body gets cleaner, you might say, wow, I'm starting to feel really good. I'm going to take more of this. And what happens is that it will start to boost your for instance, your hormone levels to the proper levels. Whether you're female or male, it's going to balance your hormones, right? So if you're a female having hot flashes, it's going to help you with that. If you're an older gentleman who's starting to lose the testosterone output, it's going to help you with that, right? The one thing that Shilajit is not going to do is not going to make more testosterone than your body needs, okay? It's not like that. So understand it will bring you up to your base level, which for men, especially older men like me, it makes you stronger. You stand up straighter. You have better endurance. For endurance athletes, Shilajit is the bomb. Okay. For first time users of Shilajit, I'll tell you this, man. I will give Shilajit to somebody who's going on a 100-mile bike ride, right, a century ride, and they'll have the best ride of their life. They don't know why. Wow, Sam, that felt so good. What the heck is going on? Well, they had so much energy in their system. Right? And so that's what Shilajit is. It's an energizer. It has all the electrolytes. It has all that power. You can augment the electrolytes to really even magnify it. Okay, so as you use Shilajit, you'll start to understand it. It's also a magnifier, a crucifier of all things that it touches, right? It's the supreme yoga vaha of medicinals. It means that it will amplify 1,000-fold the other medicines and other energy things that you're taking. So that's really important, right? So be careful if you're on some major medicines because it's an amplifier, right? So if you're taking, other herbal medicines, put a drop of Shilajit in there. You'll go, whoa, what happened? It will energize that medicinal 1,000-fold or more, depending on what it is. So bottom line is that Shilajit can be used, liberally. It's not herbal medicinal where you have to stop using it. Okay, so let's get rid of that fallacy right now. You can continually use it. It's not going to bother you that way. Give it to your dogs. Tessa here is on Shilajit. She gets drops of it in her water. Gus is on Shilajit. He's 13 plus years old and he's going strong. And he gets a few drops of Shilajit. So consider all that. But the bottom line is start slow, go long. The longer you go with the Shilajit, the more power it's going to give you, and you'll be amazed at how you feel, because I think most of us have never felt great. We don't know what true super health is, and I don't think I knew it until I've been on Shilajit for the last couple of years.